All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We're joined by Alasdair, Veeru, and David Glenn. This is a big segment. We're taking a moment to kind of take a step back. Each of you have seen a lot of walkthroughs and a lot of logistical announcements around Flywheel 2.0, the technology that Teikametrics is implementing. And the goal of this is, well, first, I'm joined by three incredible leaders in the company that are the backbone of the announcement that you've seen today. And we're really focused in this session on taking a step back, talking about technology, talking about AI, the implications for Teikametrics, and the implications for the industry as a whole. Before we jump in, though, I'm going to ask each of you to just briefly introduce yourself to give people some context for who's talking when you're answering some of these questions. So, Alasdair, if you could kick us off.
Well, thanks, Cameron, and thanks everyone for tuning into this special event. My name is Alasdair McLean-Foreman. I'm the founder and CEO of Teikametrics. Super excited to talk about this specific topic. It's really the central part of our value proposition to how we help customers and sellers maximize their potential on all the most valuable marketplaces. So thanks, Cameron.
David.
Hi, thanks, Cameron. David Glenn. I am the director of AI at Teikametrics. I'm responsible with my team for all of the research and development for the backend algorithms that deliver the AI agents that deliver all the automation for campaign optimization, bid optimization, and so forth. I've got a PhD in operations research and about 18 years of experience delivering business systems that optimize decision-making. So looking forward to talking with you. Thanks, Cameron.
And Veeru?
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. I'm Veeru Namuduri. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Teikametrics. Super excited to be part of this conference, and I've been building optimization platforms for my entire life. This is one of the very exciting spaces we're in, where the amount of data that we're gathering in the e-commerce space is just exponentially growing. And with large amounts of accessible data comes the opportunity to build amazing algorithms and the power of AI coming to fruition. So very excited to be here and talk about AI.
If you're wondering about the impact of technology and AI and the impact that has on your business and in e-commerce, this is the group to listen from, to hear from. So thank you all so much for being here. Let's start off simple. Maybe it's not that simple, but let's start off by defining artificial intelligence. This is a really good place to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page and talking about this really core subject. So David, I'm going to lead with you. If you could, when we're talking about artificial intelligence, define that for us a little bit. What do we mean?
Usually artificial intelligence refers to any computing system of agents that is able to perceive its environment and make decisions and perform tasks to optimize its goals and objectives. So if you think about that in simple terms, think of things that humans are able to do in an instant, like recognize a face in a crowd, or perceive someone's meaning when they're speaking, or in the domain of e-commerce, look at some charts of ROAS and ad spend and quickly perceive how something is trending and quickly make some decisions about what to do. Now imagine taking those individual tasks that a human can do very well instantaneously, and then multiplying that out over thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of instances instantaneously. And then imagine the computer's actually starting to be able to do better than humans because computer doesn't have a bad day. It doesn't have any cognitive biases or emotional challenges for the day, right? And then even beyond that, imagine this system of agents able to start to see interconnectivities and patterns across all of these nodes that no human could ever perceive because we have limited memory, limited energy and capacity. So that's the power of AI.
Alasdair, Veeru, do you have anything to add to paint that picture? That was very well explained, David. I appreciate that. I just want to open the door.
I thought it was a great explanation, David. I just think we're in a very interesting time in technology. You've heard about AI, big data, machine learning, and there have been sort of eras over the last 20 years where people have sort of used those terms. And I think in certain cases, maybe it's been a bit of a disappointment. I think right now there are so many applications, including Teikametrics, and the value that we're creating is really applying AI to solve a big problem. And we'll talk more about it in this session. And I love how David explained it. I think it's spot on.
Yeah, +1, same thing. David's explanation is spot on. The only thing I'll add is, when does AI come in handy? It's an aspect that's been debated quite a bit. A lot of people try to bring in AI pretty much in every application out there. The simplistic way of thinking about this is, if there's a task out there that's too boring, too repetitive, you can expect a machine to be able to start to learn to take that up. And if it's a task is very challenging, that's another area where AI can be deployed to make it simple and help the human being. But AI at the fundamental, like David explained, is mimicking human behavior in an algorithm that can be built because of access to large amounts of data.
The solution of solving problems at scale is a huge aspect. The aspect of artificial intelligence. And I want to paint the picture for e-commerce a little bit more. So Alasdair, I'm going to go to you for this question first. Veeru, David, add in anywhere. But there are kind of two parts to this question. Number one, why is AI so essential to the present and the future of e-commerce? And how is it solving those problems at scale?
Yeah, great question. And I think it is so relevant and super passionate of what we do here at Teikametrics. And I'll take you back in time. For those of you that don't know, I was one of the first third-party sellers on Amazon back in 2003. And at that time, Amazon, believe it or not, was really just known as a book website. They had done a project with Toys R Us. They had started to sell certain products. And I was fortunate enough to be invited by Amazon to sell, as I said, on this book website. It wasn't particularly compelling. If you go back in time to what I was doing at that time, I was really selling products on my own website. I was selling products on my own website, primarily getting traffic from Google Organic. This was also around the time pre-Google Shopping. There was a product that Google had called Frugal, where you could list your products, but that hadn't really taken off. So there was only really eBay and organic Google. And it was kind of comical back then, because what you were doing is, on your website, you were doing some basic things like highlighting that you may have a certain type of SSL encryption, so you wouldn't abuse people's credit cards or give people confidence that they could check out. You would say, normally ships within 7 to 14 days. And there was a lot of work done at the time. And I remember this around optimization of, how does your website look? How do we present the products? And there was this whole field of website development that sort of intersected with e-commerce. What Amazon has done, and really they are the flagship, that's the company that has evolved e-commerce the most in the last 20 years. They've centralized and basically simplified the consumer experience. That's the beauty of Amazon. They've got one really, really simple search engine from a consumer standpoint that is the everything store. There's one secure checkout process. Where I'm going with this is, in a world where the goods are the goods and the website is homogeneous and frictionless, where is the competitive advantage? That's what led me over the years to get more and more focused on the back-end optimization, because you wouldn't get any advantage from the front-end optimization. So I think the advantage now, if you think about the value chain of where you're going to create value, is in the optimization. It's in the product and the optimization. And that's really what led us to build, Teikametrics. I, as a Amazon seller, was selling more and more on Amazon than I was on my own website, with things like Amazon Prime. Again, you took out all of those fulfillment challenges. So, Amazon has really teed up the world of automation, and has also implemented an API first mindset. When I first started operating on Amazon, there was no product API to connect with the goods that you had. There was no pricing API. In fact, a lot of companies, including ours, were scraping data. And Amazon, just like Facebook, just like Google, are the real pioneers of this sort of API mentality. With an API, you get an interface to the data and tons of it. So all of these changes that really are evolutionary in terms of the last 20 years of e-commerce have led to a company like ours actually being the brain for the seller. And so I think you're going to see more and more companies in other industries. I think there are going to be multi-billion-dollar companies, hopefully ours included, that are going to be building value, not on website optimization, not on the front end, not on the consumer side, but on the back end, and helping people deal with all those complex problems. And as we know, and if you're a seller on Amazon or Walmart or any other channel, you know that it's very, very complicated. And it's just a perfect problem to solve, just like David Glenn said, with that sort of beyond human capability technology.
I want to go a little deeper, but I also want to open the door for Veeru or David to give input with this bigger, broad question. So opening that door.
Thanks, Cameron. So, Alasdair said it really well, but the thing I will add to it is he mentioned a few things: optimization in a competitive landscape. Now we know how e-commerce has become extremely competitive, and not 10 years ago, where you could, as a seller, succeed if you focused on your products and your supply chain and start selling on e-commerce and make it big. Now there are a lot more variables in the e-commerce marketplace. The number of variables that has increased, whether it is your own products, the reviews that you're getting, the competition, which other brands you're competing against, the other channels that you're competing against, price optimization, and your supply chain. Because there are so many factors that are coming in, and the time of the day of the week of the year, and so on, seasonality that's kicking in, the amount of learning that is needed now to eke out that small amounts of optimization and beat your competition has become vital in the industry, right? And those who are able to eke that out are able to win and gain a large market share. The others are unable to compete. And this is again where AI neatly ties in. The difference between an AI algorithm and a regular algorithm, right, is you can build an algorithm to deliver really good results. But an AI algorithm gets wiser the longer it's deployed. It's basically learning from the experience, just like a human does, learning from some of the mistakes it's made or some of the good stuff it's delivered, and building wisdom based on that to better operate in an ever-changing dynamic environment, which is today's e-commerce marketplace.
I love what you're saying there, Veeru. And it actually brings up something that I think would be fun to discuss. Because, when you think about the background of our name, there's two parts to it. Teika is the Japanese word for market price and relates to the history of me really transitioning from selling on a .com website to recognizing that the future of retail is going to be in these walled gardens like Amazon. And it's really the classical, Econ 101 chart where it's supply meets demand. Amazon's going to bring the demand, and we have to optimize the supply on that curve, and that's who we are. The other part to our name is metrics, and that is derived from Econometrics, which was a field of study that I touched on, not at David's level, of course, but I did study that in college. I'd love to just use this to bring and maybe ask David a question, because Veeru, you said some things that I think are very relatable to anyone that knows about the field of econometrics. That being, instead of just looking at machine learning or AI algorithms in a vacuum, you're looking at a bigger system with econometrics. As an example, you can use econometrics to understand impact of taxes, or what's very relevant right now, inflation. I think what's really interesting is for our optimization problem, last week we had Prime Day. And that's sort of an economic event that's sort of outside of the core algorithm. And I think, David, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know that there's a whole load of debates regarding econometricians. Like at Amazon, they bet a lot on some of the world's top economists, and there's almost like a not a battle, but there's always a question of, is econometrics better, or is machine learning stroke computational AI better? I'm a bit biased. I think there's some power in what Veeru is talking about, which is like seasonality, specifically around Prime Day or Black Friday. What do you think, David, between that?
I mean, if you're really talking about the difference between a real expert and an AI system, there are many cases where the AI system can actually outperform the expert because of the vast amount of data that it's able to collect and synthesize very quickly and avoid.
I wasn't, I didn't mean expert. I just meant an econometrics approach to the mathematical solution, taking into account seasonality and so on, less so an individual. I am completely bought into the machine that certainly you built would outperform any human in the world. What are your thoughts on econometrics versus AI? Or even is that a fair argument, a valid one?
I mean, I guess I would view any AI model needs to be able to do a good job of forecasting. And at the end of the day, econometrics is often about forecasting. So I would say a good AI model for e-commerce is going to subsume the best econometric model. So for example, our system looks at Prime Day events in the past and slices it out into the great detail, and it predicts how our conversion rate is going to change, how our volume is going to change during this event, so that we can give the best guidance possible to our users.
So that makes sense. So I suppose then, just listening to that, and you're saying that the best AI models are effectively applying models that are very similar to econometrics and not just looking at the data in a vacuum, which makes sense. I think it's super relevant with e-commerce, and I think there's a lot that relates to that with the demand. There's so many different factors, right? With supply chain, time of year, seasonality, that we can build models that take that into account for our customers. And then there's a scaled data component. I mean, David, I'm really proud of how much data we're getting, and in a way, the more data we have, the better the models your team is going to be able to develop. I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Will we be able to predict a better Prime Day next year, as an example?
Yeah, that is the goal. I mean, we're always looking for taking in additional external data beyond simply what the channel is able to provide to us, and integrate that data in so that the machine learning models are able to respond and become more and more accurate over time.
I want to help people define. I want to get more specific about like Teikametrics and about the recent updates that have happened to Flywheel 2.0. So we've at the very least scratched the surface of defining the importance of AI and kind of painting that picture a little bit. But when it comes to the recent updates, why is this kind of a stake in the ground moment? Why are these updates so important for the Teikametrics ecosystem? Maybe what's gone into that? Why do they matter? And how is AI being leveraged in these recent updates? Open question. Whoever wants to take a stab at that first.
Let me take a crack at it, but I would definitely lean on David to fill in the gaps there. So, and this is a little bit of leading off from where Alasdair was poking at as well. See, when it comes to our AI models, right? One of the things that is so powerful is, with the large amount of data that we've been collecting, we are finding patterns in these data. So while we know all the variables that need to be accounted for and coming up with an equation or an algorithm to solve these optimization problems, knowing not just how much weight to apply to each of these variables and factor them in, it's finding patterns and uncovering the insights to know if we should have multiple slices of models for, let's say, by category, right? So David's models, what they do is they don't treat Prime Day the same way for all categories of SKUs. These models are able to identify which apply in different ways, different factors, and so on. And knowing that, it becomes a huge scale problem. It's a little bit less than now about building an econometrics algorithm, which starts to learn further in bringing those patterns in to build an AI algorithm that over a period of time just gets wiser. So this question that Alasdair, you asked, David, is our Prime Day going to be better next year? Well, absolutely. The learnings from this year and every peak that we're going to see, it's going to know the number of ways it should not fail and the whole other number of ways it has succeeded. And it's only going to get better from it. The more we explore, the more we are going to be able to exploit. And this is key to our AI technology. The launches that we did in the last 6 months have been tremendous towards one big factor and many small factors. And the big factor is learning the seasonality, learning to know how to forecast for how demand is going to come. If you can predict how many units of a particular SKU you're going to be able to sell, given the environment and the conditions and the factors that are going to be in play, we can in real time, as these factors are coming in to fruition, be able to very effectively and intelligently react to it. Unlike maybe other models or other algorithms that are reacting to performance data in real time, which means they're continuously changing based on the outcome they're receiving based on very small amounts of data. Reacting to small amounts of data means you're going to keep on making the same mistake over and over, versus reacting to patterns that we built on large amounts of data. And from our forecasting means we are always one step ahead, if not 2 steps ahead of our competition.
David, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, with respect to the latest release, there's some really key things there. And one thing I would point out is the power of AI for e-commerce and why it's essential. Number one, it's about scale, right? You can hire, big vendors, big sellers, they can hire experts, managed services to manage their campaigns. And those experts are going to do a great job, but they can only pay attention to a handful of opportunities at a time. The key thing is the middle and long tail of products and ad groups that nobody has time to really micromanage. The AI is going to optimize all of that for you. And you get this thing where the summation of a very large number of very small gains adds up to a lot. So one key element of that in the latest release is the ability for users for the system to automatically generate campaigns for them. The right type of targeting, whether it's a manual campaign or an automatic campaign, the right competitive orientation, whether it's a branded campaign or competitive keywords. And then the target recommendation will automatically populate that campaign with relevant and a rich set of keyword targets that are going to optimize placement. All of this done automatically for the user to now enable the user to step back then and be more strategic and really pay attention to the specific areas where opportunity lies. And then finally, one last detail about the latest release is that the bidder is becoming more and more aware of the product's status. So the bidder knows if you've had a stock out, it knows how to respond properly. If the ad is not serving for any other reason, it knows that and it responds properly when the ad comes back online immediately. So there's a lot of detailed nuances about the factors at play that we've embedded in this recent release.
Alasdair, do you have anything to add?
I was just going to say, thanks, and for David and Veeru to talk about the features. I think one of the things that's challenging for us, which is why we're putting on this event, and it was a great idea by you, Cameron, and the rest of the team to do it, is we're genuinely constantly upgrading our technology. We've absolutely committed to the mission statement of helping build technology with AI maximize the potential for every seller. So, you know, just some of the stuff that David had touched on is just some of the big ones, but you know, that's the conversion rate forecasting model, which is enhanced. There are so many interface upgrades. We've actually also worked very closely with Walmart, who've changed from a first price auction to a second price auction. That's a huge game changer for the auction dynamics. So we've had to recalibrate our algorithm to do that. There's a huge amount of work with regards to what we call the targeting engine, which is surfacing up the right keywords to then apply the bidding to. And I could go on, and let alone all the different ad types that the bidder is supporting. So I think this is a classic problem actually with AI. How do you know if, you know, Teikametrics is better than company, you know, X, Y, or Z? And, you know, I think putting on these events, being more transparent, surfacing more of the data as we get better and better is just a really important way. You know, we've just had, you know, amazing results that we reviewed from Prime Day. We've seen some of the best results that I've ever seen. And it's really, really important right now because, you know, the brands out there are really questioning, well, is consumer confidence coming down? Is demand coming down? Is this Prime Day going to be better than or worse? And what's going to happen for the second half of 2022? And I'm really proud that we've seen those innovations actually positively impact our customers. So I know there's a lot of things that I'm saying at once there, but I think the commitment from us, you know, and I look at some great companies that have innovated in you know, let's take Tesla as an example, you know, that the over the you know, you know, over the radio or remote updates that you get in a Tesla, it's constantly upgrading and innovating. And, you know, that's truly what we're doing. One of the things that we need to do though is make sure that we test everything and make sure that the investments that we're making truly do benefit. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's good to address in this session. You know, we've been working very closely with Amazon, beta testing some of the new data that they're giving us, specifically around Amazon Stream. And, you know, there's quite a bit of buzz in the industry. You know, yes, you can get data more frequently through a push mechanism versus pull. But I want to emphasize more data and more frequent or higher resolution doesn't necessarily mean better decisions. And I think that's just really, really important of the amount of resources that we've invested under David's team and Veeru's team to make sure that we're back testing these algorithms, not just simply, you know, jumping on this idea of, you know, building a black box. It's really important because I think the best AI companies over time are really going to need to build trust. And that's just a, you know, sort of stepping back a bit, that's a really big deal for AI, right? Like whether you're going to trust a Tesla to drive you through a busy neighborhood one day, or us to, you know, manage your, you know, entire business on Amazon or Walmart, you know. So, you know, that's why, you know, we've got a lot of great support. You know, in fact, our last investor or lead investor in our last investment round was Intel. They are the within the top 3 of investment companies that are focused on AI. And I think that's a really important thing to tell everyone because it relates to who we are, who we're hiring, the way that we approach the building, you know, David's approach to the investments that we're making. Yeah, and, you know, we welcome any feedback, by the way, anyone listening to this. You know, we should be continuing listening. I know the one of the benefits at Teikametrics is the fact that we've got an incredible managed service option. And that's where you get that human in the loop meets the world-class AI. And that's a really, really good combo. And I love when we look at our release channel and there's some comments sometimes, and one strikes out in particular when you've got one of our leaders on the managed service side interfacing with customers coming back and saying, you know, the AI team's, you know, hit a home run here and it's the biggest update and, you know, it's going to have tremendous impact. So we've got that sort of trusted expert in the loop piece as well. And again, this is another component of AI, right? Like how much is going to be automated, how much is going to be that symbiosis with a human.
I have two questions left, and this has to do with literally what you were just ending with, Alasdair. I asked this knowing that perhaps there isn't necessarily a black or white answer. There might be, but there might be a whole lot of gray in between as well. Is the future of e-commerce completely automated or partially automated? Or both?
I think well, I'll answer, and then I'd love to hear what David thinks, and what Veeru thinks as well. I just think there's so much complexity and nuance that having a human in the loop and that symbiotic relationship between automation to do the long tail stuff that David mentioned, like the sheer volume, but then the feedback and the adjustment from a human. There could be some inputs, right, that the algorithm wouldn't understand. Perhaps you may have a new pattern on a product, or you may have acquired a business that has, tremendous IP, and then you might want to optimize that in a particular way, or perhaps you want to lose money as a loss leader. There are all these sort of control feedback components that I think are very, very important. There is actually a famous paper written quite a long time ago regarding this, which actually speaks to the symbiotic relationship between man and machine. And there's been numerous examples of, people with, sort of average chess players using a laptop going up against, the big, huge chess algorithm AI machines. And it's that human in the loop combination that can actually outperform perhaps just solely a machine. Well, that's what I believe as a business operator. Curious if David or Veeru has any other opinions, or whether we think you can build the true self-driving car and it will just do everything for you.
I think it's amazing how much, if you break it down into individual tasks within e-commerce, it's amazing how much of it is already almost fully automated. But on the other hand, there's always going to be a need for a human in the loop to manage strategy and to keep track of those edge cases where the Tesla fails to recognize some situation it's never seen before. You'll always need a human in the loop. But the name of the game actually is, as AI advances, you're going to automate more and more and more and do more and more heavy lifting for the user, so that the user is able to more and more focus their energies on the strategic opportunities. That's the key.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. Cameron, I believe we're going to live in a world where both human and the AI are going to coexist. I don't believe the human will ever go away, and there'll ever be a world where artificial intelligence is completely taken over autopilot mode, right? Now, the evolution that I believe we're going to see is in how is the human participating in this landscape. Human intelligence is going to start helping the artificial intelligence get better. The human is not working independent of the artificial intelligence, right? The human is more and more helping drive how AI gets better in the future. This is, when we are thinking about our algorithms, we're always thinking about what are the smart defaults that AI can present, and allow the human to then know to step in and override where they need to, right? The features that David Glenn talked about, how our campaign optimizer is essentially generating building campaigns for you and optimizing your campaigns along the way based on changing environments and situations. There will always be some scenarios where a human being has data or information or context that the machine doesn't, and knows that the machine doesn't have that context and needs to bring in and override that and teach the algorithm that. Right, so we are going to see that evolution more and more happen. It's already sort of part of how we are developing our systems, but there's going to be a big evolution there. As our sellers are waking up every day to say, how do I grow my business? How do I double my business? Right? Our algorithms are also going to keep on building those kind of recommendations to help drive the experience our customers are getting. Okay, these are the set of recommendations for actions that you need to take, and then have the human then review them and go, yes, I will accept some of these, there are more nuanced, or reject these. Every recommendation that a system provides that is either accepted, rejected, or nuanced, overridden, our systems in the back end will continue to learn from that and then evolve and get better. So that's the world I see us getting to.
I want to just continue, Veeru, off of what you were saying. I mean, we're talking about the future and we're talking about general AI. And Veeru, you were starting to get really painting the picture of what the future for Teikametrics holds. And we've also talked about the future of Teikametrics. We touched on this earlier in the conversation as well. When it comes to Prime Day, for example, our information, our data, informing our system to perform better next year during Prime Day next year, right? My question is, how will Teikametrics continue to evolve and raise the bar when it comes to an update like we saw with Flywheel 2.0 in this instance? What's next? As much as you're willing to paint the picture for what's next for Teikametrics.
Yeah. So two parts there. One, how will we do it? Right. My core philosophy is talent is the long-term sustained advantage for any company in any industry. And this is where I think Alasdair alluded to it, the great team that David Glenn built under him. I am super proud of the AI team that we have here at Teikametrics. I believe the best AI team that we have, among all our competition, bar none. So that is the how. How we will get there is our commitment to double down our investments in AI to help our sellers grow their business. Now, where will we get to is, this goes back to our philosophy also. We're constantly looking at the challenges that our seller is running into, right? In fact, internally, Alasdair has us running our own seller business. As an example, I'm selling some T-shirts and David Glenn is selling some SKUs himself as well. And as we are going through this, we realize the pains, we realize the challenges our sellers are encountering, not just because we're helping the sellers or interacting with them and questioning them. We ourselves are living the lives of these sellers, these entrepreneurs. And these entrepreneurs always are looking at the next bottleneck, the next biggest challenge that is, coming up to double their business. And as we look at that, we will continue to operate and innovate and build our AI towards that. When we released our latest product to automate and targets in the campaigns to optimize their campaign structures for all of the ad types, we also learned the very next challenge is the budget management. How the setting of the ACOS, the budget management, the goals, the life cycle of a SKU, how does the user or customer seller tell us what their goals are? And for the algorithm to then decipher from the goals to how the campaigns need to be optimized over a longer period of time, right? That's the next piece of functionality that we're working on. Expect to hear from us before the end of the year a major release coming from Teikametrics, where you can simply say, hey, you know what, this is a SKU I'm launching. This is a SKU that I am looking to maximize profit on. I have a newer version of a game console coming up. I need to start deprecating or liquidating this console. Help me liquidate that better. For a seller to be able to tell their intent for a SKU and for the AI to then manage their advertising completely is the next set of challenges we're working on.
That's huge. Alasdair, David, this is the final question. So any input you have here?
Well, I'm super excited and just gets me excited listening to Veeru talk about those functionalities. Look, I think we had some really important points in this session because, and I looked it up as we were talking, the man-computer symbiosis is the name of the paper back till 1960 for anyone who wants to do some bedtime reading. I actually think that encompasses who we are as a company, because I want to emphasize that we've built an amazing team of folks that actually have the best experience, the best research, and can provide the guidance like a Sherpa would to apply the AI. We have that option, and that's where we offer our premium standard packages to any seller. It's super accessible. It's the best pricing, the best value in the entire market. And we've also got the option to do it yourself with self-service. And that price is, again, incredible. And this is around our commitment to democratize AI for every seller. So when you put those two packages together, that's who we're going to be, Cameron. That's who we're going to be for everyone who's listening. It's just the best choice. If you're struggling on Amazon and you're flying blind and dealing with all of the noise of what ad type should I run? Should I do this? Should I do A+ detail pages? Should I do video ads? Should I do DSP? There's just so much. And then you switch it on to Amazon and Walmart at the same time. We've got you. We've got you on the self-service side. And by the way, if you're under $10,000 a month in sales, completely free. We are going to invest in that and in your partnership. So, in addition to the cool stuff that Veeru is talking about, the cool stuff David is building, I want to emphasize that it's that true help that embodies our company, right? And going back to man-computer symbiosis, I think that's the future. And it's awesome.
David, anything to add?
Yeah, I could give a little bit more detail on what Veeru brought up. In terms of allowing the user to, at a high level, set their goals and their intentions for products, wherever that product is in its life cycle, the system will then recommend back out to the user where they should be strategically. So for a category of products, it's going to recommend out, hey, what is the sweet spot for your advertising cost of sales for each and every one of these products based upon your gross margin and based upon how your ads have been performing. But not only that, it's going to optimally allocate your ad spend across products in the portfolio, across markets within the channel, and even across channels. So it's going to do a fair amount of budget optimization so that the user really can manage from a strategic perspective. And that's sort of, this is a game changer, but we'll also be paying attention to the details as well. So things like very specific examples, like for example, if for whatever reason your supply chain has slowed down and you've lost your prime shipping status and it's FBM now, the bidder will become aware of that situation. Hey, the conversion rate just suddenly dropped because I've lost my prime status. So now the bidder is going to be more responsive to the nuances like that. So we're really looking at the big game changers as well as always the fine-tuned details of making it smarter and more adaptive.
Thank you all. Alasdair, do you have anything to add?
I was just going to say also, one of the things that we do and super important is work very closely with Amazon and Walmart. So we will be supporting the stream data set, which will increase the resolution and perform even better. And that's a big part of our job, working very closely with Amazon, working very closely with Walmart and all the other channels that we're going to support in the future. So you're going to see big innovation there as well and just make everything better.
I think that this session specifically is the most important session out of Upgrade, mostly because it gives really good context for helping people understand artificial intelligence, but mostly understanding the core of Teikametrics and painting that picture a little bit better. So thank you to each of you for being here and breaking down such a complex topic in a way that makes it a little bit easier to understand. It's been great having you here.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoy it and best of luck with your selling, and thanks for the opportunity to help you. It's been a pleasure.